It is the perfect time of year for a spooky game, and where better to turn than the renowned Silent Hill franchise. Last year we got Silent Hill 2 remake from Bloober Team, and this time round Konami and Neobards Entertainment have come together to make a brand new entry. Historically, the Silent Hill games have varied massively in quality, but have Konami managed to impress in back-to-back releases with Silent Hill F? What's up? How's it going, people? Welcome to Casual Gamer Reviews. If you want to support the channel, then please leave a like and subscribe. Or if you don't like it, then leave a thumbs down and let me know how I can be better for you. It took me 12 hours to complete my first playthrough of Silent Hill F, but I have spent a further 15 hours working my way towards the other endings, reviewed on Xbox Series X. Silent Hill F takes on all the usual gameplay tropes of the best survival horror titles. The game is split into two main elements, puzzles and combat. You have three difficulty options to choose from, story, hard and lost in the fog, the latter of which is the hardest, and you must beat the game first before you unlock it. The great thing about these different settings is that you can choose one for the combat and a different one for the puzzles. Do you want easier combat and complex puzzles? You got it. Do you want challenging combat but simple puzzles? No problem at all. It was a great idea to untie the two core elements of the game and make them customizable. Unusually for a survival horror, Silent Hill F focuses on melee-only combat and is also tied to a stamina meter. Before this game's release, the developers said they wanted to hone in on the fact that Hinako, the protagonist, is just a young girl in high school and not some kind of super soldier. The stamina meter helps with this, as when it runs out, Hinako will stop in her tracks completely exhausted, which adds realism to the intense setting. Following on from this, swinging metal pipes, baseball bats and crowbars continues that realism rather than a teenager armed to the teeth. In addition to health and stamina, Hinako also has a third bar, her sanity meter. This works in two ways. Firstly, enemies in this game have the capacity to cause psychological damage which drains sanity rather than health. If sanity reaches 0, then this damage will switch to health, but at a much larger rate. Secondly, the sanity meter can be used for Hinako's focus ability. Focus allows you to power up a devastating attack, and the length of time it takes depend on the weapon you are using. The other use of the focus ability is to slow down time when a parryable attack is incoming to make it easier to execute the parry. Yes, this game has a parry, although it wouldn't be what I would necessarily describe as a parry, but that's what this game calls it. The combat itself is pretty simplistic. Every weapon has a light and heavy attack, and then on the defensive side is the dodge and the parry. If the dodge is executed perfectly, you'll slow down time and get a chance of a free hit, as well as your stamina being fully restored. The parry, as I said, isn't what I would describe as traditional. Effectively, certain moves from enemies will cause them to flash, and if you press the heavy attack button right at this moment, you will smash them into a staggered state. This window is remarkably small and almost always felt too fast to react to. That makes the focus ability useful on paper, but in reality, you don't know when they could be using an attack that can be parried, so you just end up standing there watching your sanity drain away. I never thought this was a viable combat method. The combat begins enjoyable, but by the end of the game I could definitely see its flaws. Firstly, the combat animations can be pretty janky, both from Hinako swinging her weapons and from the enemies attacking her. Secondly, is that the further you get into the game, the more spongy enemies become. These weapons are degradable and will break without toolkits. The fun is sucked out of the game when you are endlessly swinging on an enemy as your weapons continually break. Thirdly, is some sections of the game are forced combat sections. I'm not talking about bosses, but just run-of-the-mill enemies. You get trapped in a mini area and have to defeat all the enemies before proceeding. These gauntlets are okay to begin with, but I was tired of them by the end. Mixing together these flaws resulted in me having this actual experience in the penultimate chapter of the game, where I was playing on hard combat difficulty. I was swinging on an enemy so much that I broke through all three of my weapons and they still didn't die. I couldn't proceed because it was a forced combat encounter, and by the time I noticed a weapon had spawned, I got caught with a grab attack by a side enemy that I'm convinced that I dodged. That was a rare instance of all of these criticisms coming together, but it was frustrating. The combat isn't all bad though, and I thought it actually felt really good in boss fights or one-on-one encounters. There are a good handful of boss encounters throughout the game, and these are by far the standouts, not just for their gruesome designs or their strong story connections, but also because it makes the combat feel like what I imagined the developers wanted it to be, a tense, desperate fight for survival. It's in these flashes where I thought that Silent Hill F could be a masterpiece when combined with its other parts. Like all classic survival horrors, you can find consumables lying around the map that can be used to replenish health, stamina, or sanity. These can be assigned to quick wheels for easier use, and there are 2 wheels of 4 that you can cycle through, which I thought felt really good. On my first wheel I had only health items, and on my second wheel I'd put the sanity and stamina items. You are also confined to inventory space, which is simply a number as opposed to Resident Evil style specific placement. As expected, this inventory space can be expanded by finding certain items throughout the story. There are also ways to further enhance your combat prowess in this game. Using a faith system, Hinako can level up her health, stamina, and sanity levels. Scattered about the map are these little things you can pray at called Hokora shrines. These shrines are used as your save points, but it is also where you can put up offerings to increase your faith. You can offer most things up from consumable health and stamina items to items that can't be used for anything else except offerings. The faith number can be used in 3 ways. First is the way I just mentioned to level up one of Hinako's meters. You will also need a specific upgrade material for this though. Second is to pray to replenish your sanity. This was usually a much smaller offering and is only really relevant on harder difficulty levels where your sanity is drained a lot more. The last thing is to draw a random omamori. Omamoris are important in Silent Hill F. They are effectively your charms giving you certain buffs. One could increase your health, one could increase your window for perfect dodge, one could strengthen the durability of your weapons. Some of these get more complex than this, and they are really your bread and butter if you want to survive the Lost in Fog difficulty. You can find them hidden throughout the story. Some are only available in New Game Plus and New Game Plus 1, and others can be bought at the Hokara shrines by performing a random draw using faith. The other side of the game is the puzzles, and these are fantastic. They are usually accompanied by some piece of information, often in the form of a riddle. The complexity ranges from simple single-stage puzzles where you must arrange something in a certain order, or they could be a big multi-stage puzzle where you must go through a series of rooms trying to find the items you need to complete the main challenge. The best thing about them is that they always come in a different wrapper. I never ended up having to do the same type of puzzle twice. Early in the game, you encounter a multi-stage puzzle in a field where the scarecrows are these gruesome twisted puppet monsters. Pick the wrong one and prepare to fight for your life. In the middle, you have to try and get to grips with a word puzzle to decipher a secret code. Towards the end, you have to solve several mini puzzles to get the required items to attempt the main puzzle, which still has to be solved. Each one felt fresh and exciting to engage with. The different difficulties you can choose at the start really ramp these up in a way I didn't expect. Not only do they change the solutions, but they also add more items and available possibilities in addition to giving you less information to work with. Some of these puzzles on Lost in the Fog difficulty are incredibly difficult, and I struggled immensely with them, but they never felt frustrating, which is a sign of great design. Given the fact that the solutions change depending on the difficulty also works wonders with the replayability aspect, given the many endings this game has. If you want to get the endings, and I can honestly only advise you do so as they are very good, it just adds that extra carrot that the puzzles are different each time. The reason why I recommend so strongly the multiple playthroughs is that Silent Hill F's story is best told when you continue playing through New Game Plus. This game is set in Japan in the 1960s, which is noteworthy as it is the first time for the series to take place in this time period and locale. Playing as Hinako, a teenager in high school, your small, quaint town gets overrun with the fog and these horrifying monsters emerge. You must navigate these terrors to help your friends and find a way out. Silent Hill F takes part in 2 main realms, the town I just mentioned and a spirit realm called the Dark Shrine. This is a sort of mystical place Hinako travels to at certain points of the story. I won't spoil anything, but the presence of this place and its material or immaterial existence is much up to the player to discover. The story focuses on the misogyny and expectations of young women in the 60s in Japan and the societal consequences of deviating from the norm. It has some strong messages to tell and it blends perfectly with the psychological horror of the game. It turns out some real-life terrors are the true scares. The first playthrough of Silent Hill F gives an ending that only teases the true story and never reveals its full hand. There are 4 further endings to get to unravel more. In normal circumstances, I would find this annoying as I would want want the story to be told in full from the offset. But the way Silent Hill F provides its breadcrumbs works perfectly to keep you hooked into future playthroughs. Each of your first 3 playthroughs include new readable documents, new dialogue, and new cutscenes, each of which will provide a little more information to what is happening. Combine that with the fact that the game isn't all that long and will be shorter on sequential runs, it makes this fantastic package where I find myself 3 endings in and gunning for the last 2 in my desperation to reveal the full story. My recommendation is that you should do the same, as what I've seen so far is gripping. Visually, Silent Hill F walks that well-known Japanese boundary where horror and beauty collide. The main aesthetic of this game mixes the gruesome fleshy monsters with the crimson flowers fresh in bloom. It is gorgeous and completely unsettling at the same time. I never found this title to be particularly scary in the traditional sense, but it was the visuals and intense imagery at times that would make your skin crawl. There is a specific part of the game where this is pulled into full scope and it made me want to look away from the screen. When you get to that bit, you will know what I mean. Both worlds benefited from this imagery in different ways. In the 1960s village, you get a very natural looking horror where it is plants contrasting with twisted body parts. In the Dark Shrine, the horror takes a much more ritualistic approach, where the beauty is all ornate and jeweled, contrasting with the blood and gore. These amazing visuals are translated entirely over to the boss designs as well. I made sure to only record footage of the one showcased in the trailers as to not spoil any further ones, but my god, some of them are vile, and I mean that in the best way possible. Even this one I'm showing here looked awesome. Disgusting, but awesome. Hinako and her friends look like how I imagined teenagers in school uniforms would look in 1960s Japan, and Hinako's design specifically I think works well. She is prim and proper at the start before she gets beaten up over the course of the game, where her appearance changes drastically with clothes becoming tattered and various cuts and injuries plague her skin. This makes sense both in a practical way and with the game's messaging. Where I can report some slight negatives is with the performance. Quality mode runs at 30 and boy is it noticeable. In performance mode it runs a lot smoother, but I did get stutters every now and then when engaging in the more hectic enemy encounters. There were 2 instances where it ground to a complete freeze frame for a second, which was very short-lived but obviously noticeable. It is worth mentioning that those are both in my early hours with the game and it hasn't happened since, even on multiple playthroughs, so they may have already released a patch for that. I would say that this game runs smoothly about 90% of the time that I have played it for. Silent Hill F's soundtrack is composed by the original Silent Hill composer Akira Yamaoka in collaboration with 3 others. In summary, it sounds great. There is a nice blend of creepy vibes with ritualistic prayer music crafted with eastern wind and percussion instruments. There are a couple of tracks in particular that are exceptional. Both exist at key story beats, and this quality is noticed throughout the cutscenes in general. I couldn't find an official release of the OST at the time of writing, but I can only hope that it comes soon. As for voice acting, you can choose to play this game in Japanese with subtitles or dubbed with English VO. I chose to play this in Japanese as I thought it would be essential to the experience, and I personally think I made the right choice. The Japanese voice of Hinako is Konatsu Kato, an actress who looks like she's moving over to video games for the first time. She starts off quiet and reserved, but fully bodies the role by the end and has a great presence. Although I haven't experienced the English dialogue, Hinako is voiced by Suzy Young, who is best known as Yuffie from Final Fantasy VII Remake, so I'm sure the performance is good here also. The companion characters seem to be voiced well, but you hardly speak to them for most of the game. It is a lot of Hinako and her internal dialogue in addition to letting the environment speak for itself. I usually have a side content portion in my review structure, but that is a little tough for Silent Hill F. There are no collectibles in the traditional sense, but I suppose if you want to call anything optional content, it would be the successive playthroughs. As I said, each one can have new cutscenes, new documents to read for lore, new omomoris to find, new story paths to explore, and ultimately new endings to get. I suppose technically this would be optional given that the game does roll credits after playthrough 1, but I can't in good faith allow you to play this way. You must try and get the additional endings of this game. They are just so damn good. Silent Hill F is a survival horror game that does its franchise proud. Its gorgeous and unnerving environment combined with the exceptional mystery the story presents is something I can't get enough of. The music and horror work perfectly with the mid-20th century Japanese traditions and folklore, and I applaud the developers for making a hard turn to explore this setting. The puzzles are thought-provoking and challenging, and I love that different difficulties led to different solutions. The combat is the obvious blemish on an otherwise fantastic game, and I didn't enjoy the spongy enemies and lack of stamina, but it's not terrible and it does get remarkably better as you get more used to it. Usually if I knew a game had 5 endings, I would think it was pretentious and annoying to not tell the full story in one go. Silent Hill F has made me eat my words as I find myself 3 endings in, desperate to find out more of the story. Now I'm going back for playthrough 4 with a genuine want and desire. Silent Hill F gets a casual gamer score of 9 out of 10. Check out the channel for other reviews like Hell Is Us or my Ghost of Tsushima 2025 review, and make sure to keep an eye out for my Games of November video coming later this week. If you enjoyed this content, please leave a like and subscribe, or if you didn't like it, then leave a thumbs down and I will try to be better next time. Let me know in the comments below if you will be playing Silent Hill F this spooky season, and for everything else casual gamer, keep it here. Peace and love.